She smiled like I was the problem and said, "Can you step out for a bit? You're making him uncomfortable." And the room full of people pretended that sentence made sense. I left without a scene, and by midnight the only thing left to celebrate in that house was the sound of a locksmith drilling in a brand new deadbolt. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. And if you have your own story to share, send it to me. My contact info is in the description below. I'd love to feature it in an upcoming video. Thanks. I'm Colin. I was 32 when this happened, living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'd been dating Madeline for a little over 2 years. I'm not the dramatic type. I'm the guy who reads the lease before I sign it, keeps a folder for receipts, and sets reminders so bills never get missed. I build custom cabinets for a small company in town, the kind of work where if you measure wrong by a quarter inch, everybody sees it forever. Madeline was the opposite in the way that feels fun at first. She was social and magnetic, the type who could walk into a room where she knew nobody and leave with 3 invites and a brunch plan. She worked as a fundraising coordinator for a local arts nonprofit. She was good at it, too. She could turn a polite email into a donor writing a check. I liked that about her. I liked watching her light up when she talked about a program she'd helped fund or a gala that came together because she pushed it over the line. When we met, it was at a neighborhood volunteer cleanup in Noda. I only went because my buddy's wife guilted him, and he guilted me. Madeline was there handing out gloves and water like she ran the place. She made a joke about my boots looking too serious for picking up trash, and I told her they were my work boots, so I was already losing money just being there. She laughed like she liked how direct I was. I invested because the relationship felt solid. It wasn't fireworks all the time. It was steady. I showed up. I fixed things. I built a life with her in it. I didn't just say I cared. I paid the late fee once and never again. I can give you the boring examples that matter when you live with someone. One, when her car needed brakes and she was panicking about the cost. I helped her find a fair shop, took the morning off to drop it off, and covered half the bill. It was $418 total, and I paid $209 because I knew her budget was tight that month. 2, she hated dealing with utility companies. So I set up auto pay for the water and electric under my name because my credit was stronger and I didn't want anything late affecting us. I sent her screenshots every month, not to control her, just so everything was transparent. 3, her nonprofit job didn't pay like people think fundraising pays. She'd have a month where she was proud of a grant, then a month where she was stressed because her hours got cut after an event. So when we moved in together in June of 2024, I made sure the lease was in my name. I'd lived in Charlotte longer. I had the stable income, and the landlord wanted one primary leaseholder anyway. Madeline sent me her half of rent every month, but if she missed, the responsibility was still mine, and for most of the time, she didn't miss. The place was a 2-bedroom rental near Plaza Midwood, not fancy, but nice. Rent was $1,860 a month. We split it. I paid the renter's insurance and the internet because I was the one who cared about coverage and speed. We furnished it together, but I bought the big-ticket things, the couch, the dining table, the mattress. I liked building a home. I liked being the steady one. The first cracks didn't show up as fights. They showed up as little dismissals, a shift in how she spoke about the past. Her ex's name started appearing in casual conversation like background noise. His name was Brent. She said it like Brent, like it took effort not to roll her eyes. Oh, Brent used to hate this restaurant. Brent would have loved this band. Brent always said I'd end up doing nonprofit work. At first I didn't think much of it. People have history. You don't erase it. I didn't ask her to. But there were things that piled up. She had old photos still up on her Facebook, not many, but enough. Pictures from some trip in Asheville where you could tell they were together without any caption saying it. I didn't care about the photos existing. I cared about the way she acted when I asked, gently, why she still had them pinned. She shrugged and said, "It's not that deep. You're not one of those guys who needs to erase my life, right?" "No," I said. "I'm one of those guys who wants to understand what I'm building my life on." She kissed my cheek and said, "See, that's why I love you. You're not insecure." That word started popping up more. Insecure, jealous, overreacting. Then came the just checking in texts. She didn't hide her phone from me, but she did this thing where her whole body angled away when she replied to messages. Not dramatically, just enough to notice if you were paying attention. One night in November of 2025, I saw his name on her screen because she was showing me a photo someone sent her for work. She swiped too fast and I caught it. Brent, message preview. I was in the area. I didn't accuse her. I asked a normal question. He's in Charlotte. She sighed like I was making her tired. Yes, he moved back a few months ago. It's not a thing. Did you tell me he moved back? I didn't think it mattered, she said. You don't need a report on every person I've ever dated. I remember the way she said report, like I was some controlling manager. The tone stuck with me. After that, she brought him up less, but not in a way that felt like she cared about my comfort. It felt like she learned to edit around me. December rolled in and Madeline's nonprofit started planning their winter fundraiser. She lived for that kind of thing. Lighting, music, donors in nice coats, all the chaos of trying to make something look effortless. She'd come home late, drop her heels by the door, and tell me about a sponsor who wanted their logo bigger than the mission statement. On Friday, December 12th, 2025, she came home practically floating. She threw her bag on the couch and said, "We did it. I got the grant." I stood up from the kitchen because her voice sounded like it had fireworks in it. What grant? The Arts and Community Fund, she said, eyes bright. 250,000. I whistled because even I knew that was big. She wrapped her arms around my neck and laughed into my shoulder. My director said I carried this. Like me, I'm going to be leading the next project. I was genuinely proud of her. I said that. I meant it. And that night she said she wanted to celebrate properly, not just dinner out. I want people here, she said, sweeping her hand around the living room like she was already decorating it. A real night. I want it to feel like, I don't know, like we're building a life, like we made it. That sentence hit the part of me that loves stability, so I went all in. We picked Saturday, December 20th. She wanted it to be winter warm, not a loud holiday party. Candlelight, hot cider, a cocktail station, nice finger food. She started a guest list. Coworkers, a couple of her friends from college, our neighbors, some people from my shop. Nothing huge, maybe 25 people. I offered to handle the logistics. That's my lane. I rented extra folding chairs from a party supply place on Central Avenue. I paid $74. I ordered a charcuterie spread from a local shop and a tray of mini desserts. $212. I picked up a case of sparkling water, mixers, and a couple bottles of decent bourbon because Madeline's coworkers liked bourbon. I set up a little sign by the door that said, "Congrats, Maddie," because she said her friends called her that, and I wanted it to feel personal. Madeline bought a new dress, dark green, the kind that caught light. She kept saying, "I can't believe this is my life." I believed it. I believed we were a team. The day of the party, I spent the morning cleaning. Vacuum lines in the rug, bathroom stocked with fresh hand towels. I moved my tools into the spare closet so nobody would see half-finished cabinet parts. Madeline was in the kitchen making a cranberry syrup for drinks, music playing, hair pinned up. It felt good, normal, like the future. People started arriving around 7. It was cold out, that kind of damp Charlotte winter that sneaks into your bones. Coats piled on the bed in the spare room. Laughter, clinking glasses, her coworker Alicia complimenting the candles smell like it was a hotel. Madeline was in her element, moving through the room with a drink in one hand and a story in the other. She introduced me as my partner and kissed my cheek. I talked to my shop friend Dale about a job we had coming up in South End. I helped refill the cider. I watched Madeline shine. Around 8:15, the doorbell rang again. I was closest, so I went. When I opened the door, Brent stood on my porch like he belonged there. He was taller than me by a couple inches, wearing a pea coat that looked like it cost more than my rent, and he had that easy smile that says he's practiced it in mirrors. He held a bottle of wine like a peace offering. "Hey," he said like we'd met, "I'm Brent." I didn't step back. I didn't invite him in. I just looked at him. "Colin," I said, "how do you know this address?" His smile didn't change. "Madeline, she told me to come by. I didn't want to miss it. Big night for her." Behind me, I could hear the party. Laughter, music, the hum of people in our living room. My mind did this quick inventory like a carpenter measuring a crooked wall. This wasn't a surprise drop-in. He had a bottle. He had a coat like he expected to stay. He said big night like he was part of it. I didn't move. I wasn't told you were invited. Brent lifted his eyebrows like that was quaint. "Man, I'm just here to celebrate her. We're good, no drama." "Hold on," I said, keeping my voice low. "Stay there." I stepped back inside and found Madeline near the kitchen island, laughing with her director. I waited until she had a half-second alone and leaned in. "Brent is at the door," I said. She didn't look surprised, not even a flicker. She just blinked slowly like I told her the trash was full. "Okay," she said. "Okay," I repeated. "Why is he here?" She sighed. "Colin, can we not do this right now? I'm asking a simple question." She glanced toward the living room like she was checking if anyone was watching. Then she leaned closer, smile still pasted on for the room. I told him he could stop by. It's not a big deal. "You didn't tell me," I said. "Because you would have made it weird," she said, voice sweet but sharp, "and I didn't want weird tonight." That was the first punch, not his presence, her deciding my feelings were weird and managing around me. "Madeline," I said quietly, "this is our home. I paid for most of this party. I deserve to know if your ex is coming." Her eyes flashed irritation. "There it is. You're making it about you. It's my celebration." Her director walked past and Madeline smiled big again, like nothing was happening. Then she turned back to me and whispered, "Just be chill." I walked back to the door because Brent was still there, standing like a statue. Madeline followed me, her smile ready. She opened the door wider and said, loud enough for the hallway, "Brent, you made it." He stepped inside like he'd been invited to a wedding. Madeline hugged him, not a quick polite hug, a full two-arm hug with her cheek pressed to his. I stood there holding the door like a doorman in my own house. Brent looked at me over her shoulder, still smiling. He said, "Congrats again, Maddie." She laughed, "Thank you," and led him into the living room. I didn't announce anything. I didn't clap. I just watched. People noticed, you could feel it. Little glances. The room didn't stop, but it shifted. A couple of Madeline's friends from college looked at me like they were trying to remember if she'd ever mentioned an ex still being this present. I went back to the kitchen, poured myself sparkling water, and stood by the counter like I was recentering my body. I told myself, don't blow it up. Not here, not in front of people. I could talk later. I could handle it like an adult. But Brent didn't stay in his lane. He moved through the party like he was reclaiming something. He made jokes about Madeline's old habits, told a story about her singing along to some song in a car, and every time he did, her laugh got louder. I watched her light up in a way I hadn't seen in months. And then the line happened. It was around 9. I was in the hallway near the bathroom because someone needed help with the coat room. One of Madeline's coworkers couldn't find her scarf. I was holding a pile of coats, looking for a gray knit scarf, when Brent walked down the hallway like he knew where he was going. He stopped near the bathroom door and leaned against the wall, his voice low. "Hey man," he said to me, "I'm not trying to step on toes. I just, she and I have history." I didn't respond with anger. I didn't puff up. I just said, "You're in my home. I'd appreciate you respecting that." He smiled like he heard a joke. "Sure, I'm just saying she told me you're a good guy. She said you're stable." The way he said stable made it sound like safe, like boring, like I was a utility. Before I could answer, Madeline came down the hallway, cheeks flushed from the party. She looked between us. "Everything okay?" she asked, smiling too hard. I said, "I'd like to talk to you for a second." Her smile dropped a millimeter. "Colin, not now." "Just a second," I said calm, "in the kitchen." She glanced at Brent and then back at me like I was an interruption. We stepped into the kitchen, but the kitchen wasn't really private. People were in there grabbing drinks, chatting. There were 2 of her coworkers by the fridge. Her director was near the island. Madeline didn't seem to care. She seemed almost safer with witnesses. I kept my voice low. "Why did you invite him without telling me?" She exhaled like she'd been waiting to be annoyed. "Because I knew you'd do this." "Do what?" "Make it a thing," she said, eyes narrowing. "You're acting insecure." I didn't raise my voice. "I'm acting like your partner. I'm asking why your ex is here." She rolled her eyes and I saw one of her coworkers glance over. Madeline didn't care. She looked at me like I was embarrassing her. "Colin," she said, "it's one night. He came to congratulate me. You can't just be happy for me." "I am happy for you," I said. "I'm not happy about being blindsided in my own home." She put her hand on the counter and leaned in like she was delivering a verdict. "You're ruining the vibe." That phrase, ruining the vibe, hit harder than it should have, because it was a party she wanted to feel like our life, and now I was being told my presence was a problem. Brent drifted into the kitchen like he'd been summoned. He hovered behind Madeline, and I watched Madeline's attention shift to him automatically, like a magnet. Brent's smile faded a little, and he said, "I can leave if this is an issue." Madeline snapped her head toward him. "No," she said quickly, touching his arm, "don't be silly." Then she looked back at me and said the sentence that changed everything. "Can you step out for a bit?" she said, loud enough for the people near the fridge to hear. "You're making him uncomfortable." For a second I thought I misheard, because it's a ridiculous sentence when you say it out loud. My home, my lease, my money and the food on the counter, and I'm being told to leave because the man who shouldn't be here is uncomfortable. I didn't argue, I didn't do a dramatic laugh, I didn't beg, I just looked at her. "I'm making him uncomfortable," I repeated quietly, mostly to myself. Madeline's eyes flashed with that "don't you dare" look people use when they know they're wrong but they want control more than truth. "Colin," she hissed under her breath, "please don't do this. Stop overreacting. It's my night." I turned my head and saw the faces of two coworkers pretending not to listen. I saw her director freeze a half second. I saw Brent's little satisfied breath, like he'd won a point. I set my glass down on the counter. I didn't slam it. I placed it gently. "Okay," I said. I walked to the bedroom, put on my jacket, grabbed my keys and wallet from the dresser, and walked back out through the living room like I was just stepping out to get ice. Madeline didn't follow me. Nobody stopped me. The party swallowed my exit like it was normal. Outside, the air was cold enough to wake me up. I sat in my truck for a minute with my hands on the steering wheel and felt something settle in my chest. It wasn't rage, it was clarity. If someone can look at you in your own home and ask you to remove yourself for the comfort of the person who disrespects you, they've already picked a side. And if they do it publicly, they're telling you where you rank. I drove to a 24-hour diner off Independence Boulevard because it was open and quiet. I sat in a booth with a cup of coffee I didn't really want. I watched a couple argue softly at the counter. I stared at my phone. Madeline didn't text me for 45 minutes. When she did, it was "Are you okay?" or "I'm sorry." It was "Can you not be dramatic? Come back and be normal." I stared at that line until it stopped being words and became proof. I texted back, "I'll be back later." That was true, I would be back later. It was my address on the lease, my name on the utilities, and my furniture in that living room. But I wasn't coming back to be normal. I was coming back to close the door on something that had already ended. I finished my coffee, paid the check, and drove home around 11:30. The street was still lined with cars. The lights were still on. Music still pulsed faintly through the walls. The party was still happening in my living room like I was an optional accessory. I sat in the truck for a minute and breathed. Then I walked up to my own front door and let myself in. The moment I stepped inside, the smell of bourbon and perfume hit me. People were still laughing. Brent was on my couch like he owned it, shoes off, drink in hand. Madeline was near him, leaning in close to hear something he said. She saw me and her eyes widened like she didn't expect me to return, like she expected me to disappear quietly. I didn't address anyone. I walked straight to the coat room, grabbed a trash bag, and started collecting coats. That got attention. Madeline came over fast, smile brittle. "Colin, what are you doing?" I kept my voice calm, ending the party. "You can't," she said, grabbing my arm lightly. "This is embarrassing." "I'm aware," I said, and gently removed her hand. "Tell your guests they have 10 minutes. People heard. The room quieted in that way. A room does when the music is still playing, but everyone's attention shifts. Madeline's director looked uncomfortable. Alicia whispered, "Oh my God," like she just realized there was a real life under the glitter. Brent stood up, posture tense. "Man, relax." I looked at him. "You're not in a position to tell me anything in my house." Madeline's eyes flashed. "Your house." "My lace," I said, still calm. "My name, you know that." Her face changed like she hated that fact when it wasn't benefiting her. I didn't fight with her in front of people. I didn't start a scene. I gave directions like I was closing a shop. "Thank you for coming," I said to the room, not sarcastic, just firm. "It's late, we're wrapping up." Most people moved, they didn't want to be part of it. Coats were grabbed, shoes found, awkward hugs exchanged. Someone said congratulations again to Madeline like they were trying to salvage the purpose of the night. Madeline stood near the kitchen island, frozen, angry, humiliated, looking at me like I'd betrayed her by not accepting my own humiliation quietly. Brent lingered, he always lingered. He stepped toward Madeline like he was going to play hero. Madeline said, "Brent, don't," but it sounded weak. I opened the front door and held it. Brent finally walked out, brushing past me close enough to whisper, "You're going to regret this." I didn't reply. I watched him walk down the steps into the cold. By 12:15, the house was quiet. The music was off. The lights were still too bright. Madeline stood in the living room with her shoes in her hand like she didn't know where to put herself. She started first, "Are you happy now?" I looked at her, "I'm clear now." She scoffed, "You ruined my night." "You did," I said. "I just stopped pretending." Her eyes got shiny, and for a second I thought she might pivot into real emotion, but she went right back to defense. "Colin, you were being insecure," she said. "You made it a competition." I didn't argue. I didn't list every example. I didn't ask her to validate my feelings. I just moved into logistics because that's what happens when the emotional part dies. "Madeline," I said, "this isn't a debate. I'm ending the relationship." She stared at me like she didn't compute it. "Because of one night." "Because of what you did in that night," I said, "and what it says about everything else." She took a step closer, voice rising. "You can't just kick me out." "I'm not kicking you out tonight," I said. "I'm giving you written notice like the lease requires." That stopped her because she knew I wasn't bluffing. She knew I read things. I went to the desk in the spare room and pulled out the folder where I kept the lease, utility bills, and important mail. I didn't do it to be dramatic. I did it because when someone calls you insecure, while they rewrite reality, paper matters. I sat at the dining table and wrote a simple note, dated December 20, 2025. I wrote that the romantic relationship was over effective immediately. I wrote that because the lease was solely in my name, I was providing her 30 days to vacate the premises as required for an occupant not on the lease, and that I would coordinate a reasonable schedule for her to retrieve her personal belongings. I wrote that we would communicate via text or email only. I wrote that she could stay in the spare room during the notice period, and we would not share a bed. I didn't write anything petty. I didn't write a zinger. I didn't say, "Now nobody's uncomfortable," like I've heard people do. I wrote it like a business letter because that's what it had become. Madeline stared at the paper like it was a foreign language. "You're insane," she said, voice shaking. "You're treating me like a tenant." "I'm treating the situation like reality," I said, "because you treated me like a problem to be managed." She opened her mouth to argue again, then shut it. Her eyes slid toward the door, like she was checking if Brent had texted her. I didn't comment on that. I stood up and said, "I'm going to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow about a plan." She followed me down the hallway. "Colin," she said, softer now, shifting tactics. "You're being extreme. You always do this. You get quiet and then you make these decisions like you're superior." I stopped and looked at her. "I'm not superior. I'm just done." I slept in the master bedroom with the door locked. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it because I needed a boundary that couldn't be negotiated at 2 in the morning. The next day, Sunday, I went to the hardware store and bought a new deadbolt. I didn't change it immediately. I called a locksmith first because I wanted it done correctly and documented. The locksmith came Monday morning, December 22nd at 10:30. It cost $185. I paid it. I asked for a receipt with the address on it. I put that receipt in my folder. I didn't lock Madeline out. I gave her a copy of the new key that day and wrote down that I'd done it. The lock wasn't to trap her. It was to remove the possibility of Brent wandering in, or anyone else, or her deciding to make a point by forgetting keys and giving spares to people who shouldn't have them. I'd watched how she prioritized comfort. I wasn't going to be naive. Madeline started sleeping at a friend's place more and more. She'd come by to shower or grab clothes, and she'd act like the house was hers and not hers at the same time. One day she'd ignore me completely. The next day she'd try to talk like we could reset. She sent me a long text on December 26th. "I miss you. I hate how this feels. Brent shouldn't have come. I only invited him because he helped me during a hard time and I didn't want to be mean." I responded with one sentence, "You don't have to be mean to have boundaries." She replied, "You're always making me the villain." I didn't respond. In early January, she asked if we could do therapy. I told her I'd already scheduled a few sessions for myself, not as a negotiation, but to process. She said, "So you'll do therapy but not with me?" I said, "I'm doing therapy to heal, not to bargain." Madeline moved the last of her things out by January 19, 2026. I helped in a way that surprised her. I had boxes ready. I had a clear plan. I told her she could choose a time when I wouldn't be home if she wanted privacy, and I would leave the spare room door unlocked. She chose Saturday morning. I went to the shop early and stayed late. When I came back, the spare room was empty, the closet half empty, and there was a gap in the apartment like the air had changed. The day after she moved out, I went to the leasing office and added a note to my file that no one else had permission to access the apartment or request keys. I didn't do it with drama. I did it because I didn't trust messy people to stay out of clean boundaries. That's when the recovery part started, not instantly, but steadily. I stopped skipping the gym. I didn't turn into a superhero. I just went 3 mornings a week because it anchored my head. I started cooking simple meals instead of grabbing whatever. I went to work and focused on what I could control: measurements, finishes, deadlines. I met with my therapist every other Wednesday and said the uncomfortable truths out loud, that I'd ignored warning signs because I liked the version of us that made sense. I didn't stalk her socials. I didn't ask friends for updates. I didn't need to. Reality has a way of traveling to you without your effort. It started with my neighbor, Mrs. Donnelly, who lived across the hall and always seemed to know everything. She saw me carrying groceries one evening in February and said, "Honey, I'm not trying to gossip, but I hope you're okay." I said, "I'm okay." She nodded like she didn't believe me and said, "I saw Madeline the other night. She was out in the parking lot crying. Some man was yelling and then drove off." I didn't ask who, I didn't need to, but Mrs. Donnelly said it anyway because she couldn't help herself. The Brent one. A week later, one of Madeline's coworkers, Alicia, ran into me at a coffee place in Plaza. She looked uncomfortable, like she was choosing between loyalty and honesty. She finally said, "I'm sorry about what happened at the party. That was not cool." I said, "Thank you." She hesitated. Madeline been having a rough time. I didn't ask for details, but Alicia offered them in pieces. Madeline had shown up to work late more than once. She'd missed a donor call. She'd had a blow-up with her director in a meeting about the grant timeline. Not screaming, but a sharp exchange that made people look at her differently. Her director apparently said, "We need you steady," and Madeline said something like, "I'm under a lot of pressure," and the room didn't soften around her the way it used to. Then there was the Brent situation. Alicia lowered her voice and said, "He's been around, and it's messy." Messy was the word I'd used too. Brent was charismatic, but he was also unstable in all the ways charisma can't cover. Apparently he'd bounced between jobs since moving back. He'd started working for some startup in South End and quit after a month, then claimed he was consulting. He'd show up at Madeline's place, her friend's place, then her new place when it suited him. He'd post pictures of them like a trophy and then disappear for days. He'd make promises and then call her nutty when she wanted consistency. That's the part nobody seems to understand about boundaries. You don't need a villain. You just need someone whose mess will eventually spill on you if you keep letting it in. In March, Madeline tried to come back in a different way. She sent a voicemail at 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. Her voice sounded small, like she'd been crying. "Colin," she said, "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize how much I disrespected you. I wanted to prove I could be mature, and I messed up. Please call me." I listened once. I didn't play it on repeat. I didn't forward it to anyone. I saved it in case I needed proof later, and then I went to sleep. The next day she texted, "Can we meet for coffee, just to talk?" I said, "I'm not meeting to talk. Please stop contacting me unless it's about mail or remaining items." She replied, "Wow, cold." I didn't respond. Then came the flying monkeys, right on schedule. Her sister Erin texted me from a number I didn't have saved. "Colin, this is Erin. Madeline is not doing well. You don't have to take her back, but can you please stop being so harsh? She's embarrassed and she's suffering." I read it twice. I could hear Madeline's voice in the wording: harsh, embarrassed, suffering, like my calm boundary was cruelty. I replied, "I'm not being harsh, I'm being clear. I wish her well. Please don't contact me again. Aaron responded with a long message about how Madeline made one mistake and how I always wanted control. I didn't argue. I blocked the number. In April, I got a piece of mail for Madeline, a bank statement. I texted her, "Mail arrived. I'll leave it with the leasing office. Ask them for it." She texted back immediately, "Thank you. Can you please just talk to me for 5 minutes? I miss you." I didn't respond to the second sentence. I took the mail to the office like I said. A week later, I saw her in person for the first time since January, not counting the move-out day. It was at a public place, which is how these things always end up when someone wants emotion and you want a clean edge. It was Saturday, April 18, 2026, at a farmer's market in Uptown. I was there because I'd made a routine of it: coffee, eggs, fruit. I was standing at a stand looking at tomatoes when I heard my name. I turned and saw Madeline. She looked different, not in some dramatic movie makeover way, just tired. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup, eyes slightly puffy. She held a tote bag like a shield. For a second, I felt that old reflex, the one that wants to take care of someone you once loved. But then I remembered the kitchen, the sentence, the way she'd chosen his comfort over my dignity. Madeline stepped closer. "Hi." "Hi," I said. She glanced around. There were families nearby, an older couple looking at flowers, a guy playing guitar. Witnesses, public, safe. "Can we talk?" she asked. I kept my voice calm. "About what?" She swallowed. "I messed up. I know I did. Brent was a mistake. Everything after was a mistake. I don't know what I thought you'd calm down." I didn't smile. I didn't sneer. I just let the truth sit there. She kept going, faster now, like if she filled the air, she could reshape it. "He's not what I remembered. He's been awful. And I realized I threw away the best thing in my life because I wanted to feel wanted, and I'm sorry." I nodded once. "I hear you." Her eyes brightened like that was hope. "So." I lifted my hands slightly, not to silence her, but to keep the line. "Madeline, I'm not reconnecting." Her face tightened. "Why are you doing this? Why are you still punishing me?" That word again, punishing, as if my boundary was a weapon. I looked at her and I made sure my tone stayed even. "I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself." She shook her head, tears forming. I was celebrating. It was complicated. "It wasn't complicated," I said. "It was clear." She took a step closer, voice rising just enough for a couple people to glance. "I didn't mean it like that." I held her gaze and said the line that closed it, the line that mirrored her key sentence without drama. "Madeline," I said, "I'm going to need you to give me space. You're making me uncomfortable." Her mouth opened like she'd been slapped by her own words. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't add insults. I didn't say karma. I just let it be what it was, the same logic she'd used, applied back to her, in a public place with witnesses where she couldn't rewrite it. She stood there trembling, and for a second she looked like she finally understood how humiliating it is to be dismissed for someone else's comfort. I picked up my bag of tomatoes, nodded once, and walked away. By summer, my life was quieter in the best way. In June of 2026, I got promoted to lead installer at my company. More responsibility, better pay. I didn't celebrate with a party. I celebrated by taking my dad fishing at Lake Norman and letting the sun burn the back of my neck while we talked about nothing important. I kept seeing my therapist until it felt like I wasn't rehearsing the past anymore. I started dating slowly, not because I needed someone, but because I wanted connection without chaos. I met a woman named Kendra at a friend's cookout in August. She worked as a paralegal, which made me laugh because she understood paperwork the way I did. On our third date, she asked what my boundaries were, like it was a normal adult question, and I felt my shoulders loosen because I didn't have to fight for basic respect. I heard through mutual circles that Madeline eventually left her nonprofit job. Some people said she quit. Some people said she was pushed out after missing too many things. I don't know the exact truth, and I don't need to. I just know that her life became harder after she started treating loyalty like something you can borrow and return. The last contact I got from her was a simple message in October: "I hope you're happy." I stared at it for a long time, not because I wanted to respond, but because I realized something. I was happy, not in a loud, victorious way, in a quiet, steady way, the kind that doesn't need an audience. I didn't reply. I deleted the thread, and I went back to building a life where nobody gets to ask me to leave my own home to make someone else comfortable. If you've ever been told you're insecure for expecting basic respect, tell me in the comments what your breaking point was and what you did next.